So hello and welcome to the Lewis Nichols Show. And I'm really excited to bring on my next guest, who's a good friend of the show now. He's been on before. And what I love about him is he literally says it as it is. There's no kind of one of these people who holds back, which people just love. So let's say hello to the brilliant Reece Douglas. How are you?
I'm not bad, mate. How the devil are you?
Really well. I'm really pleased to have you on. I mean, everyone was talking about Meghan and Harry's interview, but I think this is now going to be the one that people are talking about because, you know, people know you don't hold back and you say it as it is.
Are you comparing me to royalty, Lewis?
Yeah, I think so. Everyone loves it. You know, on the reunion, everyone was commenting. They just loved how you've developed into like this hunk, everyone was saying. But generally, you just say it as it is. And I love that. When I first interviewed you, I remember coming off the phone and I was just gassed because you just answered everything so honestly. When you are with someone who's that open, it just makes it, you know, so worthwhile.
Yeah, of course. I think honesty is the best policy, and people deserve the truth. And I think as long as you're respectful and you abide by other people's, obviously their opinions as well, and make sure that you don't step on anyone's toes, then as long as it's my opinion and how I feel, then yeah, I'll always be straight and clear cut, mate.
Well, I mean, what was it like for you, first of all, being on that reunion? Because I've spoke to a lot of people that took part and I asked them what they liked the most. And everyone kind of said it was funny seeing you for the first time in so many years because of just how much you've changed.
I mean, it's strange because, you know, when I look back at myself in that show, I honestly don't really recognise myself. It almost feels like a blur from, you know, the 4 years that I was in it. It just feels like they all merged into one day. But obviously being stood here now, you know, you don't look at yourself and think, oh, bloody hell, I've grown up today. Like, you know, it's one of your things where your mum wakes up and like, bloody hell, have you grown in your sleep? I'm thinking, well, yeah, I'm like, well, yeah, I must have.
So did you always want to be an actor when you were growing up then? Was that always the ambition for you?
I didn't have a clue. I was just this rude, disruptive, class clown kid who didn't really know what direction he was going in, wasn't academic. I was that person that was disappointing, that would get in the parents' evening and they would say, your son's got so much potential, but he's putting it to waste because he's distracting people in class. And that was me. And then there was one day, and I think this was when I used to go to St. Breed's Grammar School when I was a lot younger. And the head teacher brought my parents in, and, you know, my parents were working their arse off to put me in grammar school. It's a private school. It's a hell of a lot of money at a young age. And they said, we need to see your son. You need to come in and have a meeting with your son about his behaviour and how he's acting in the playground. So they were like, right, okay. So my mum and dad left work, went into the office and said, you know, hello, Mr. Hales, as he was called back then. You know, what's happening with our son? And he went, your son's being very disruptive in class. He's being too rough in the playground, and your son will never work for anybody. So my dad went, you've literally pulled me out of my workplace and, you know, my mum's workplace. We're paying a shitload of money to put my son in education, and you're taking us out to tell us that basically you're, sorry, let me just get this, there's some audio in the back. To basically pull us out to tell us that my son's playing too rough in the playground. He said, that is absolutely unbelievable. And essentially he said, your son's never going to work for anybody. He said, how can you say that to a 5-year-old son? You know, it was obviously hurting for my parents to hear that. And then I think it was 5 years later, there was a charity football game, all the Waterloo Road cast be teachers. And guess who the teachers were?
No way. Did you speak to him?
So, well, this is the thing. So I've got my bag on. I'm walking to the school gate. And he goes, oh, typical you, Reece, pushing in the queue. I went, no, Mr. Hales. I said, you were right when you said I won't work for anybody. He says, I'm one of the actors. I'm playing against you.
So he didn't know that you were in this massive show before the charity?
No, he didn't watch it. He didn't watch it.
Mate, I see that they're the kind of stories I love, because it's the full circle thing that you've gone and proved him wrong. And that must have just been one of those moments where I can imagine you just being excited seeing him and going up to him being, right, here we go.
You know me, mate. I was a class clown as it was. I was that smug kid. So I was like, nope, I'm not pushing in. I'm in fact here to play, and I can't wait to see you on the field. See you in a bit.
Who won?
We did.
Nice.
But he was a great head teacher. I did like him, but he was just a bit of a twat for pulling my parents out of school to tell them they're too rough in the playground. Like,
I love that. That's the best way I've heard anyone describe a teacher. He was a good head teacher, but a bit of a twat for pulling my parents out. Absolute legend. Going back to when you got your part, obviously, on Waterloo Road, because I know you said being an actor wasn't something that you always kind of dreamt of, where a lot of actors, it was. So how did you actually become to get that part? Because obviously I imagine you would have needed a lot of acting experience to get it, or was it not the case?
I mean, I think you find out with quite a lot of actors that sometimes it's just by pure luck, and that instance resonated with me. I was, as I said, I wasn't academic. The only thing that I really did enjoy was drama, because it was so hands-on. It allowed me to express myself, and my drama teacher picked up on it. Mr. Bailey was called, and he said, there's an opportunity coming along with this show called Waterloo Road. All my friends used to watch it. They used to rave over Waterloo Road, and they were like, there's a part come up. We think you're going to be good. You're potentially good for it. Would you want to audition? So I said, well, yeah, I'll give it a go. So I learned the script. So did the rest of his class. So we all got a fair chance. And she came in and we did the audition, and it was a drama room where we actually held the audition. She came into the school. So we rehearsed the script. He taught me how to be off book. He told me what was going to happen. So I went in the drama room. She sat there, this woman called Michelle Smith, the casting director, lovely woman. The camera's there, and she said, right, stand on that spot there. And I had to reenact that scene where Denzel had the gun. So, it wasn't something that was necessarily, with some people, I think when they get nervous, it can go one or two ways. You can either go in yourself and crumble, or you can express yourself. And I really expressed myself. In fact, I really enjoyed it. And I think she picked up on that, and one audition led to the other. I think I got to the third, fourth, and fifth stage. And I remember, actually, I was laying in the bath, and I was only young at the time. And my mum was in a room, and I said, Mum, I need to speak to you. And she went, what? I was like, I'm going to get this part. I'm going to get it. And she went, what do you mean? You don't know if you've got it yet? And I said, no, seriously, I'm going to get this part. And I think it was 3 days later, I was in school, and then I heard it on the tannoy, can Reece Douglas please come to the pastoral office? I went, oh, here we fucking go again. So I got to the pastoral office, and then she went, your mum's on the phone. So I was like, right, go on. Hi, Mum, what's up? Someone dead? She went, Reece, you've got the part.
That's incredible. That must have been just one of those moments.
Oh, it was amazing. And then I went straight off the phone, straight to see all my mates, told them all, got the part on Waterloo Road. They were all like, oh, I'll just be walking past in the background. And then they all came round for mine when the first episode came out, Series 4, Episode 1. We all ate pizza. I think that was the last time they ever watched the show.
Mate,
They thought, not watching this again, he's in it, he's ruined it.
The thing is, though, the amazing thing about this is obviously you had no kind of big experience prior to this, yet you're joining a show with the likes of Neil Morrissey, Denise Welch. The cast of Waterloo Road had some of the biggest names in acting. So that must have been, yeah. I mean, I don't know when you were young whether you think about it as much, but it must have been daunting to go on set, and you must have recognised a lot of the people in general just from previous shows.
The only thing I recognised was Neil Morrissey. And the first thing I did was go up to him and say, Neil, you do the Bob the Builder voice. Don't ever ask Neil Morrissey to do the Bob the Builder voice. That is the worst thing you can possibly do. Because he reacted saying, I'm not a fucking performing Muppet, mate. And I went, ooh. And then I think, the rest of the cast, are they all going to be like this? I got him back, though.
How?
I got him. Well, we were all in the head teacher's office one day, and he couldn't get this line right. He had to say, throws the chair across the classroom, and he couldn't for the life of him get it right. So I kept saying it for him, and I kept saying it. And it got to a stage where he obviously got very annoyed at this young, new actor nobody's ever heard of, correcting him every time he got his line wrong. And then he went, I think I know my fucking line now. And I think, well, I don't think you do, Mr. Morrissey. I said, because you're supposed to be the professional, not me. Me being the cocky kid I was, and the whole cast, the whole crew broke down and just burst out laughing. And everyone, I think I gained everyone's respect. Certainly the crew members after that moment, because they thought, this kid's not a pushover. You know, he is exactly what his character's like. He's outspoken. He says what he thinks. And you know what? He was never rude to me again.
He needed, well, do you know, the thing is, when I love Neil Morrissey, I love the shows that he does. However, when you watch interviews with him and read them about his time on Waterloo Road, he's very negative. He said it's the weakest scripts he had ever had. It made him feel low. You know, he had nothing good to say about the show. Does that surprise you? Because hearing what you said then, it doesn't come across as maybe the most approachable of people.
Well, you know, considering you've just said that, will then resonate with why he had the attitude he did when he was on the show. And obviously what he did was, he unfortunately didn't enjoy that show. Clearly, from what you're telling me, that's news to me. And obviously that reflected on how he was talking to me. So that makes complete sense. Now, whatever his opinion is of the show, for me, I was just a young lad coming onto a new TV show. You know, I've never been on TV before. But, you know, to treat a young lad like that probably wasn't the nicest thing to do. And obviously that now makes sense of why he obviously didn't enjoy the show and why he probably talked to me the way he did.
Who on the show would you say became almost like a mentor? Was there somebody that really took you under their wing and guided you?
Chelsea Healy was so good to me. Lucy Dixon was so good to me. Luke Bailey was so good to me. I think I remember when I got my first paycheck and they all took me to Manchester. And I went in Carhartt in Manchester and I got my first coat and my first paycheck, paid about 800 quid for it. Got home, my mum was like, what the fuck are you doing paying £800 for a coat? But I was just like, oh, I felt the bee's knees. And I just remember being with all the cast and they're like, you know, go and spend your first paycheck, get what you want. And I was just like a kid in the sweet shop. And that was a really lovely moment. I'll never forget that.
Do you know, I think it's kind of, you know, in respect to you, when you watch I don't know if you've seen the reunion back, but just hearing the amount of good things the cast had to say about you, and obviously the times that I've interviewed you, you genuinely are one of the nicest people I have ever spoken to. And I know other people that have interviewed you have said the exact same thing.
Oh, mate, I could be just a bit of it. I could be a twat, really. Never know. I might be acting now. I might just be acting the nice guy.
Might be a bit of an act. Do you know, one thing that shocked me, and it shocked everybody watching the reunion, was the story you told about how you found out that you weren't in the show. You know, there wasn't a phone call, there wasn't a meeting about it. And I think the reason that was so shocking was the fact that you were such a big part of the show. You were in it for so many episodes. You weren't like a little bit, you know, in one series and that was it. You were a big part. So going back in depth to that, the story, you found out, was it from the papers?
I was on the way to do Casualty in Cardiff. Very, very long train journey. I was sat on the train, minding my own business, and this is at the end of series 7. I can't even remember what series it was, but the coach came along, you know, this drunk coach driver. We're all getting a picture underneath the Scotland sign. And then obviously, not only were the audience on a cliffhanger of who's going up to Scotland and who's not, but so were we. We didn't have an absolute clue. So we were waiting, obviously, I think there's about a 6-month gap before we start filming the next series. And, you know, it must have got into it was getting to an era of time where I thought, right, we're going to start hearing soon what's going on. Who's coming back, who's not. We all thought we would be going back, you know. There was no reason why any of us would get written out of the show. But, you know, I was 16 at the time, and I just got a call. I got a call off art department. This lovely woman called Tina. She's lovely, and she went, "Hi Reece, how are you doing? You know, how's your break been?" I was like, "Oh, you know, it's been great." And I thought it's a bit strange that she's calling me art department, and she went, "Just a quick one. Have you got a recent photo of yourself?" So I said, "What do you want a recent photo for? I've not spoke to any of the production. I don't know, you know, if I'm coming back on the show." She went, "Oh." I'm like, "What, Tina?" And she's like, "Has nobody told you?" I'm like, "What are you going on about?" She was like, "Reece, we're 3 weeks into filming your funeral. Denzel's dead."
Wow.
And I was like, "What?" So basically, they'd cracked on with the next season. They'd already started filming my funeral. They didn't write me a letter. They didn't say that I'm not going to be anymore. They were just like, "Whoop, bye." That was it.
I was just saying, when you look back though, surely that must have made you really pissed off because of just how much you gave to the show. Like, just professional courtesy is to give you a phone call and say, "Look, we're going to write you out of the show," and then you maybe could have been part of that experience, but to just do it behind your back seems really unprofessional. I've never heard anything like it.
The only justification that I can make on that decision was that nobody knew it was going to Scotland, and we found out by the press. The press were outside the school asking us questions about the move to Scotland. You can imagine nobody knew. Not one of us cast members who have got crew, who have got family, who have got friends, who have got a livelihood all based in Manchester and around Manchester, were finding out by the press outside the school gates that the show was moving to Scotland. Bear in mind they had a Scottish head teacher a season prior.
Yeah.
So that told us they knew all along what was going on, and they decided not to tell us. Why they chose that to make that decision, I ultimately do not know. But obviously it was frustrating for a lot of us to say, why are the press telling us this show's moving to Scotland and you're not telling us anything? So, 15-year-old Reece tweeted, there's no way I'm going up to Scotland. And I think the press got hold of it and they were like, Denzel Kelly tweets, he's not going up to Scotland. So I think that probably was where they thought, right, he's made his decision himself. But ultimately, no matter, that was just a reaction that I'd made because of frustration that, none of us knew. And I wasn't the only one to tweet. There was a few people, and they came down. The first time they came down to us was actually to say, stop talking to the press. So we were like, whose side are these guys on? And why are they not collaborating with us? And why are they not acting like, the family that they should be? But when I look back at it, I was hurt. I was upset. Certainly as a young lad that knew nothing but that show and gave everything to that show, to find out the way I did was hurtful. But what I think is more important is that there was a lack of support and a lack of understanding of the ramifications that would have on a young lad's mental health, because that was never taken into consideration. And I think that's something now which is definitely coming to light more and definitely coming more prevalent, is to start taking into consideration the impact of people's decisions. Certainly a show like of that stature, to cut a young lad's livelihood like that, not one consideration was made in terms of how that would impact my mental health, and it did. And that should definitely be addressed, because I think of a show of that stature, they definitely have a responsibility for people's mental health, and that was never once considered.
Looking back, do you regret the tweet? Do you regret sharing that opinion on socials?
No, I don't. I think what 14-year-old lad, amongst other cast members, so it wasn't just me, wouldn't tweet out of anger. I think now, obviously, growing up, if I was to do it now, I'm a bit more wiser, right? I wouldn't have reacted. I would have took a minute, I would have thought about it and responded in the correct way. I probably wouldn't have rushed out and put a tweet out. But when I look back now, Lewis, I think, well, no, actually, I left the show when it was hot. I left the show at its peak. And I think, to be honest, I didn't go and see the show till its death, because after it moved to Scotland, it wasn't the same show. It was like it took the heart out of the show. So when I look back at it, I think, no, I left it at a good time. It was the right time for me to move on. So no, I don't regret it, no.
And you mentioned a couple of minutes ago that when you were talking to the art department, the lady who told you the news, you said that they were 3 weeks into filming your funeral. So did none of the other cast members that moved ring you and tell you that this was going on?
No. I didn't know a thing.
Wow.
I didn't know an absolute. Yeah, I don't know. It was so long ago, I actually can't tell you the exact dates or the time we were filming. But no, I didn't know. I didn't.
So where did you go next as an actor then? Because I know you've worked on, last time we spoke, you've worked on some films and some other really cool, exciting things. So are you still acting? Because I saw you in The Bay, which, by the way, I love. It's one of my favourite series at the moment. But you were in there as a police officer. Yeah,
so I went and filmed The Bay. I've done Moving On, which was really weird because Jason Doan played my dad in Waterloo Road. He also played my dad in Moving On. I went on the set in Moving On. I was like, what? You played my dad again? I was like, this is crazy. That was crazy. But yeah, I've done a few things since then. So I've done The Bay, and I've recently just landed a lead role in a new feature film called Spiceland, which is going to be filmed all in and around Manchester with a great director called Colin. His last film won a BAFTA. So I'm really hoping this is going to, cause a big stir. And I think most importantly for me, the understanding for people of what spice has done to people's livelihoods. When the epidemic came around in Manchester, the impact it had on the homeless society, and certainly how they dealt with it and how it changed their life. And I think that's going to really bring an understanding to people that are even now walking around Manchester. You're seeing a guy that's basically asleep, stuck there, or, he's dribbling with a pizza in his hand and everyone's like, this guy's on drugs, what the fuck's he doing? But this film's really going to give you an understanding of what's it took or what's that person been through in their life to find or have to feel the need to take that drug as an escape. And that's the gap that's missing. I hope that's the gap we fill with this film.
Do you know, the amazing thing about you though is you literally don't stop, because you act, but then you're like an entrepreneur as well, and you do your day job. You just do so much. So tell us a little bit about the other side of you and your other job.
So out of Waterloo Road, you can imagine I'm a young lad. I've got a bit of money behind me. I didn't have a clue what I wanted to do. I think anyone that would be in my position, being recognised, for being on one of the most watched TV series, I didn't want to go and work in Tesco, Lewis. It was embarrassing, hugely embarrassing, to say, "Aren't you that guy off Waterloo Road? What the hell are you doing in Tesco?" Maybe it's just me being a bit big-headed, but I thought that is so embarrassing. I really need to find my feet here. What the hell do I do? But what I was doing in the green room, because when you're filming on Waterloo Road, you can have literally two scenes. One might be first thing in the morning, 7 in the morning, and you might not have anything else to do till like 4 or 5 o'clock at night. So you've got a massive gap. Now, obviously, I started to build quite a lot of social media following on my Twitter. That was before Instagram got big, right? And I used to get so many brands asking to send me products. Canada Goose, if you've ever heard of them, they're a premium coat company. They sent me the coat, and I thought, what the hell are they doing? They're asking me to advertise and mail coats to, if you look at all my followers, they're all 80% of them are women. So you're basically asking me to flog or advertise a $3,000 coat to women, a male coat to a female audience. Doesn't make any sense. And I thought, this is where influencer marketing started to come on the scene. And that's where I thought, this is what I need to start focusing on. I need to start helping brands collaborate with the right influencers. And that's a project I worked on ever since. I thought, obviously, I want this to be a tech company, because if I want to know who your followers are on Instagram or Twitter, Lewis, I need access to your social media. And the only way to tap into that is through an app or a platform that would access that data and present it to brands. So I decided that I would go and find any resource that I could to learn more about entrepreneurship and more about building a platform. And that's where I found Tech Manchester, which was founded by Lawrence Jones, who is the founder of UK Fast. And I did a podcast with him. I sat down with him. He started this new thing called Tech Manchester that wanted to help basically entrepreneurs like me that have got a great idea to find a business mentor. And that's where I did find my mentor. He's called Eric Hobson. And then pretty much for 3 years, I sat in UK Fast in the Tech Manchester hub on my own, just building on this idea for 3 years.
Do you know, it's so smart though, because when I watch your videos on Instagram and you listen to what you're doing, I like the fact that it's all tech. Like you see that, like you mentioned there, they're giving you a coat to advertise to a female audience. Like that vision just to come to you to then do something different. I think it's so smart.
Well, I just love getting sent free shit. Who doesn't? Free coats, free drones, you name it. I was asking for it and I was getting it. Yeah. So I thought, well, one, I love getting free shit. And two, brands don't know what they're doing because they're advertising to the wrong people. Why don't I create a platform where loads of influencers can get the right shit, but make sure that brands are advertising to the right people? Yeah. Social plug. And there we are.
Do you know, I love seeing people. I'm a really soppy person and I love seeing people in love. And if anyone's got you on social media right now, you are completely loved up, which is so nice to see, with your girlfriend, who's just beautiful. How's that going? You must be loving life at the moment. You seem really happy.
6 months into the relationship, I was a bit of a naughty kid when I was growing up. I had a lot of attention off TV. I was playing about a bit. I lost my ex because I cheated on my ex. And then I thought, this isn't what I want out of life. This isn't, I'm not getting anything out of this. And you start to feel a bit empty inside. And you thought, what do I actually want out of life? I want a nice family. I want a nice life. And I want somebody, that one person I can really cherish and give everything to. And I think 6 months into the relationship with my girlfriend, we're starting to find that, we're still building on what we found. We're still learning so much about each other. But no, I'm really, really enjoying it. And she's such a nice girl and she deserves the world.
You said then that, you wanted to change and what happened? What was that moment where you were like, yeah, do you know what? I'm done with this life. I want to actually settle down and, just go forward and be happy. Was there something that happened that kind of changed that?
Me personally, yeah, knowing that I wasn't going to get far in life if I carried on, that was just common sense. seeing certain members of my family that have gone down the same road and seen how it's ended up for them. And three, the way society currently is, if you look at Instagram, everything's sexualized, everything is about who can get with who. And it's almost like, you know, I think it's a very, it's a very fictitious society that we're currently living in. It's all about who can get with who's got with who, and how many people. And I just think it's the way that we're looking at things at the minute is the wrong way to look at things. And I think it's almost become uncool to love someone, which is a real shame.
Oh, if anyone follows you on social media, you're changing that trend, which I love. But thank you so much for coming on. You genuinely are one of the nicest people that I've ever interviewed. Like, whether you say it's an act, I don't think it is. I just think you're actually a nice guy. So thank you so much for coming on today and talking about your experience and more.
No worries, brother. I look forward to speaking to you again. So let me know when it's getting posted. Anyone that's following, hit me up on Instagram. I'm always a message away to help with anyone that, you know, would like some advice on mental health, entrepreneurship, or acting. You know, when I've got the time, I will obviously be in touch with you guys to offer you as much advice and help where I can. And thank you for listening for this long without boring your bollocks off, sir.
Mate, you don't bore anyone. You're like, I love, do you know, there's so much more that I can ask, but genuinely we'll get you on again. But thank you so much.
You're welcome, brother. No problem at all. Thank you for having me.